Hi, everyone, and welcome to our very last episode of the Solidarity Against Sexual and Gender-Based Violence season. As our last episode, we thought it would be great to get into why we are doing what we are doing and the main aim of this whole project. And so, today we are talking about why it's important to have feminist approaches to ending violence against women. So we are going to get into what the feminist approaches are, how does it look like, what do we do, how do we carry everyone along on this approach, as an alternative, as a more effective, sustainable alternative to the existing approaches that are being used to address this particular issue. And to do that with me, if you remember her from our last episode, Miss Chichi Boham Yosen. She is a feminist activist who is very, very passionate about sexual and gender-based violence against women, especially that against young girls. Chichi, welcome.
Thank you.
So today we don't have a script, right? I mean, this is our work. This is what we do.
So
this is our daily. This is our lived, work, right? That we don't get paid for as activists, but we're passionate about it and we put our heart into it. And so we are basically going to wing it. So no scripts today, no particular questions from me. So Chichi, this is just a conversation.
Okay.
Feel free to express.
You start your expression. I'll express alongside you.
Okay, we are getting serious now. So to start expressing,
Mm-hmm.
I have always been very passionate about intersectionality when dealing with anything at all. As a feminist activist, that's the pivotal point of my activism, intersectionality. And I always say that when I hear people call themselves intersectional feminists, I get taken aback a bit. So I'm like, okay, if you're a feminist, you should be intersectional. So that prefix intersectional isn't needed for me, when you're describing yourself as a feminist, because feminism is supposed to be intersectional. And so when we bring in the discussion about violence against women, it's my go-to point is how inclusive are we being? How are we thinking about different demographics within women as a bigger demographic and how issues of violence affect them? How are we effectively addressing their issues, considering all of the characteristics that comes with their demographic, the communities they find themselves in? I'm looking at how we are going to address a survivor, Muslim woman who is a survivor of assault, for example. How are we approaching her issue? How are we approaching that of a woman living with disability? How are we approaching that of a woman from low-income community? How are we approaching that of queer women, female sex workers? So all of these intersections for me are very important to look at. And so when we are talking about feminist approaches to ending violence against women, my go-to is intersectionality. Of course, there is a lot. But my go-to is, okay, how are we doing this thing such that it's not ableist, such that it's not elitist, such that it's not, exclusionary of other demographics of women within our bigger demography.
And I agree. I mean, the thing about the intersectionality thing, not every feminist can say they're intersectional because it's a learning process for everybody, and everybody's at different stages. So some people can understand what's within their community, but might be, for lack of a better expression, might be ignorant about certain aspects outside of their community, or might now be learning. So not every feminist can call themselves intersectional, but we know that intersectionality should be the goal for every feminist. But then again, it's a spectrum, it's a learning process for everybody.
We can actually understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And also for me, and I totally agree that it's a different learning journey.
Yeah.
Everyone is on a learning journey, right? I, for one, say that I believe that the moment you call yourself a feminist, you have, I'm trying to find the word. Your starting point is every woman's right.
Sure.
Being the center of your feminism, right? So I don't have to understand the lived realities of queer women to advocate for them or to understand their issues. If I cannot go all out to advocate for them because I don't understand their issues, I should not be a problem. I should not be a part of the problem.
The voices.
Yes, I can amplify their voices. But even if I'm not amplifying their voices, I should not be the one who is stoking fires.
That's 100%.
A lot of the time, there are feminists who, and this is not, a jab at any feminist.
Yeah.
But this is very important in this discussion because we are talking about feminist approaches.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of activists are in this space, especially those at the grassroots level. And there's always a discussion about, women's rights activists and Mbako activists and women's empowerment activists, right? And there's that dichotomy. And I'm always saying that, it's not me saying, that's the reality that these groups of women who we call women empowerment, activists or people are the ones working mostly at the grassroots level.
True.
They are the ones engaging with all of these women experiencing violence.
Yeah.
If they are not doing this with a feminist lens, a lot of the time they contribute
contributing to the
problem. They are part of the problem. They become part of the problem. They become the reason why the problem keeps, gaining roots instead of it being uprooted.
Yeah.
So that's why I said the moment you call yourself a feminist, you should be intersectional because intersectionality is an important pillar. I mean, it is the foundation of feminism.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I agree with that. But there's also some nuance because, a lot of times when people say intersectionality, they expect you to be well-versed in, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your live experience, but you should have a certain level of knowledge, right? That is not a burden we can put on everybody because it is hard work. It's tedious work, right? I feel like you don't necessarily have to understand to make sure you're not a problem because you cannot fight an oppression by being an oppressor.
True.
And that is where there's the disconnect. You can't, fight an oppression by validating some parts of the oppression that you think, and that's one problem that I personally have with the women empowerment faction, because as much as they do very good work, they also sometimes uphold some patriarchal narratives that is sort of detrimental to the work that they're doing. Do you understand? So I feel like if you're going to uproot it, you can't do it at once, right? You have to do it bit by bit. But you don't take out the salt by adding seasoning. Do you understand?
Form of salting,
because seasoning has salt. You don't take it out by like adding a bit. You need to understand that you can't be an oppressor. And I find that as human nature, a lot of the times people don't, there are a lot of people that don't understand oppression that doesn't directly affect them.
Yeah.
That's also a problem. Do you understand? But I believe that it doesn't need to affect you. The things that
absolutely
we can't, where you as a woman aren't going to be free if every woman is not free. Do you understand?
Right.
If you can't eradicate the patriarchy, you can't eradicate the patriarchy, or you can't, if other women who live in other places, whom the patriarchy affects differently, aren't also like out of that system, aren't also liberated. Because here comes the thing where in your small town, right, okay, fine, you can get rid of the things that affect you directly. Then the one thing we know about the patriarchy is that they're very innovative. They will always find ways to oppress women. That's one thing about oppression and power. So they will go learn something from that side, right? But if we're all fighting hand in hand to get rid of this, and then we know that as a society, so then when you travel out of your comfort zone, you know that you're not going to have to deal with something that you haven't had to deal with. And it also,
all oppressions are connected.
All oppressions are connected. That's the thing. Like, you might think that, okay, for me as a single mother, the stigmatization of single mothers is what affects me, right? So I don't have a problem stigmatizing sex workers because how dare you become a sex worker? Do you understand? But the sexual objectification of that woman transfers to you because when you do something a man doesn't like, he will call you a shao. Do you understand? And you will feel bad because you think that being a sex worker is something that's derogatory.
Yeah.
Do you get it? Like, they're vilifying, married women, right? Stay at home wives and then the whole working women, so I feel like, yes, we have to be intersectional, right? It should be. But then if we're not, we should at least understand that other people face different forms of oppression. And you don't have to understand it. You don't have to do anything about it. But do not be a part of the problem. Because as you are being a part of the problem, you're also giving those people that you're helping oppress them the right to oppress it. This is one thing, probably I have a pick-me's where they feel like they can talk down on women who are activists, women who are feminists, women who are non-conformists, women who are undesirable, air quotes, right? Forgetting the fact that you are living in a system that is stacked against you. And one day, all you have to do is to step out of line and all the men that you're pandering to will descend on you. And we've seen it happen so many times. So, yes, in an ideal world, we should all be intersectional, but you just have to be a reasonable human being and understand that people have different forms of oppression. Even if you don't understand it, don't contribute to it. You should be able to listen. Because that's one thing we don't like to. Nobody knows everything. You should be able to listen. You should be open to learning. And then, in the very least, if you call yourself an activist, you should be able to at least amplify the voices
of communities beyond yours.
Exactly.
That's. I was in a feminist discussion last month, and this is one of the issues that came up that it's difficult for a lot of women who even call themselves activists to advocate for the rights of marginalized groups like female sex workers, like peer women, because they don't think about oppression beyond themselves, beyond their own. And so a lot of the time, somebody who calls themselves an activist can't be bothered with queer issues, Even when they know queer women are being sexually assaulted for just being queer, they can't be bothered and they are being homophobic because for them, this is not something that affects me as a woman. But we also know, like you said, that sexual assault doesn't only happen to queer women. It doesn't happen to female sex workers only. You just have to find yourself alone with a man and who feels like assaulting you, and he will assault you, right?
True.
So, it begins with understanding oppression beyond ourselves. We got that out of the way. I'm glad we did. And now, talking about beyond ourselves, beyond activists, right? How does feminist approaches look like to you?
Beyond activists?
Yeah. As a society, looking at ending violence against women, how do we approach it? In a feminist way.
In a feminist way.
I would start by saying doing away with victim blaming.
It's very, very important. Doing away with everything we know as a society, our social norms.
True that. Yeah.
It's funny. We can't just pick because with the type of society we're in right now, right? All our social norms are anti-women.
True.
There's no, if even the ones that give the breadcrumbs, it's still anti-women.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how low a man is, he's still higher than the most empowered woman.
Exactly. It's still anti-women. We have to do away with our social norms. People have to actually have the courage. And I say it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
People actually have to have the courage to question, to openly condemn. Because in Ghana, we have an issue with respectability politics.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to look like the nice guy. Oh, I'm in a menka kana one kekede. Like, especially as women, the moment you're outspoken, oh, she's incorrigible. Oh, she's, there's a word that they use.
They're loud?
No. Disagreeable. She's disagreeable. She's, this kind of things. Like, people need to be okay with being the bad guy, because if you look at every revolution, the people who caused the most change are people who were okay with being the bad guy.
Yeah.
Because you can't help the vulnerable if you're not supposed to be if you're afraid, to be the bad guy. Do you understand? We're not, I always tell people who are anti-feminist that you people are very fortunate that feminists of today, all we do is talk.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not carrying torches, and we're not blowing up buildings, and we're not burning houses, because the people that you think were better than us, they did worse. Today we talk, right? Because we understand the value of communication.
We live in a civilized society.
Yeah, we're trying to be decent human beings. Until we get tired of this. But anyway, so I digress. So I lost my train of thought. Yes. So we need to be able to understand the flaws in our societal construct, right? Mm-hmm. And be willing to do what is necessary to break them, even if it's going against our own very conditioning.
Okay.
And it can't.
What are these flaws? How do they impact the fight against violence against women?
From the bedrock of society, which is the home, how children are raised, right? Even before marriage, the disparity. First of all, women need to be seen as fully functional autonomous human beings on their own. Yeah. That mindset has to be corrected. That women are beneath men, women are, no. We need to be seen as functional as men are functional. Right? Then when we birth children, we need to condition them to be fully functional adults in society, outside of roles, outside of the dynamics, right? That's from the bedrock of society. Now, to address the already existing problems, a lot of lobbying needs to be done by women who are in politics and in political spaces, because laws have to be overhauled, right? The legal system, the security systems, the people who are supposed to enforce the laws that are already there, are they themselves complicit in this laws? Like, you could take a rape issue to a police station and they'll look at an 11-year-old girl and slut shame her.
They all need orientation.
For being a victim of abuse. I've had a woman at Dofsu I've told you the story before. I took my neighbor's wife there. I told my neighbor's wife,
wow.
Meanwhile, this woman had to jump her wall to avoid being beaten by her husband, was hiding in my mother's house for like 3 days.
No, like, she was telling the woman that like, she shouldn't listen to people like you.
Yes, because she fancy.
Wow.
Chike,
why am I even talking like I'm surprised? This is not surprising.
It's not surprising. It's the average Ghanaian would say the same thing. So we need to know the type of, we can't just hire people for hiring's sake.
Yeah.
There has to be a lot of education for the people that we put in the offices to handle these issues. Because if they don't have the right mindset, then you have a situation where perpetrators will go unpunished, and then there'll be a prevalence because they know that when they do these things, nothing's going to happen. Yeah. They can go to the police station and pay the police officer. The police officer probably is grooming a 14-year-old in the town that in every single town he's posted to. We've heard these stories, like we've seen these things. The ministers and the university students, we've heard it, we've seen it. I mean, we all grew up in Ghana. These are stories we've heard. Do you understand? Teachers taking advantages of their students. High school, like there's a huge high school teachers thinking that the young girls are their severance pay. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? Sexually harassing students. So if you live in a society that all these things are prevalent, how do you do it? By one, educating. Two, by making sure that there are consequences for these actions. Making sure that the authorities that are responsible for meting out these consequences are filled with people who actually know what they're about, care about the job. Yeah. You understand? Making sure that there's also an internal check. There are internal checks for those, or for those authorities, like for the police. Like they have like I don't know. There's a name they call it. Where they do their no. Where where the police have like the internal police.
Oh, I didn't know they had an internal.
Yes,
like their HR sort of.
It's not an HR. So the police force has like an internal police that checks
the police.
That checks the police where they
disciplinary.
Yeah, for like disciplinary issues, stuff like that. So they investigate themselves. Like there just needs to be systems that put in place. And for those systems to be put in place, we all have to advocate. Yeah. Every single person that is a mother, a father, a brother, a sister. Because you might not care about other people, but you have to care about the people within, the people in proximity to you. So when you care about the people in proximity to you, you will want them to have an easier life. It extends to other people because other people also caring about the people in proximity to them gives them that mindset of protection. So then if 10 families that make up the community understand that I don't want my daughter to go through this, I don't want my son to be this person, then they would all come together and put up structures. And then that would make sure that the future generations don't have to deal with the cancer, which is what it is. The cancer that we have had to deal with. Because the reason why I'm a feminist is because I don't want my daughter to be a feminist. I don't want my daughter to have... There
shouldn't be a need for feminism.
Exactly. I don't want my daughter to have a reason to be a feminist. I don't want my son to be a reason why feminism is necessary. Yeah. And I think once we all have that mindset, since we are so family-oriented...
Family values. We don't play with our family values.
Since we're so family-oriented, then once we have that mindset, we would be able to understand where changes needs to be done and how we can, as individuals, regardless of whether we're activists or not, right? Just how we as individuals like can help, especially the men who claim they're protectors. Protect your children by making...
What are you protecting them from? So that's always my question.
Let's humor them. Protect your children by making sure that they live in a society that is not detrimental to their existence.
Right. Totally agree. I am particularly very big, and you've touched on these, very big on socialization, orientation, and also mainly shifting narratives. Yeah. When it comes to feminist approaches to ending violence against women. It's for the institutions that exist to check, the corrective, to do the corrective bit of incidences that have already occurred. I mean, they are problematic. It's sometimes the police who are, like you said, the police who are supposed to deliver justice become a part of the problem. They tell
True.
you, you know what, he's your husband, he slapped you, so what? Like, it happens. Your husband is supposed to discipline you. Go home. I was on a radio show, talking about ending violence against women. We finished, and I was talking to someone who worked at the station, right? And he was saying that women provoke men into disciplining them. And then I'm like, okay, so why would you lay a hand on your wife? And then he says, well, yeah, if she does something that warrants it. And I said, nothing, absolutely nothing your partner would do warrants you physically assaulting her. And he said, no, it's important. Do I read my Bible? It's in the Bible. God said women should love their husbands. So if my wife is not loving me, I have a right to whip her in line. And I said, and this is somebody who has access to radio, right? So for me, shifting narratives, changing narratives, I am big on that, because even these people in these institutions are impacted by narratives that fly around and how they're socialized, right? And for me, and earlier on I mentioned victim blaming and victim shaming, because when we talk about incidents of violence against women, beyond, addressing it at the root, it's always victim shaming, victim blaming. We had a community there, and a lot of the women who took the microphone were like, yeah, you can disagree with your husband, but say it nicely. You are not supposed to raise your voice at your husband. If you raise your voice at him, then he's likely to hit you. Again, shifting the responsibility of the man to blaming the woman for being the cause of the man, assaulting her. So I'm always, and this is mainly, in pop culture, which includes the media, how media discussions are shaped. We have journalists talking about rape like it's a joke. Oh. Like it's a joke. A young girl gets, defiled, and somebody is on radio, a TV presenter is on radio talking about, and he inserted his pen drive, and they laugh about it.
And they will ask you,
yeah, what did you know? Why were you out at this time? Why were you wearing that? Oh, he's a guy you just met on the first date. Why did you follow him home?
Not to cut you off, I heard one trigger warning. What the woman was asking, into all the shame Naya would there.
That's another major part. So now the argument is that, well, if a woman is sexually assaulted and she orgasms, it means she enjoyed it, and that's kind of consent. Of course it's not consent. So it's very dangerous, the kind of narratives that fly around issues around violence against women. Like, in our earlier episode where we had the Queen Mother, the woman has to carry firewood and do that and do that, and she goes home and she still has to, perform her conjugal duties because the man has a right to that. The man has conjugal right, yeah. And that also brings us back to socialization. We really have to reorient men and the younger boys we're bringing up. We have to teach men to understand that to understand masculinity outside of wielding power and dominance and violence, right? They don't need violence to assert dominance. First of all, you don't even have to assert dominance on anybody. You're not here by virtue of your genital to dominate another by virtue of their genital. Like, we are all, full human beings with full rights. Nobody is the lord over another. I made a post on TikTok talking about how there is no need for one partner in a relationship to be the head and the other to be the neck. We all have strengths in different ways. We shine where, we all have strength in different ways, like I said. And, this is where I'm strongest at, so I can take lead here. This is where you're strongest at, you take lead here. There shouldn't be the head of the relationship and the neck of and the men. If I tell you what the men did to me in the comments, and these are men who have been socialized to believe that they have an automatic leadership role in any relationship they enter because they wield their penis. And it doesn't end in relationships. They take that to the workplace. Even if their boss is a female, because they wield their penis, they're automatic leaders. They take that to the church. They take that to everywhere they go. They should be automatic leaders. And that's, for me, as part of how one of the things we can change in, our socialization of boys, make them understand they don't own a woman's body. They don't have a right to a woman because they paid her bride price. They are not automatic leaders because they wield a penis or whichever genital they wield. I mean, there are trans men, there are gender non-conforming, intersex, and all of that. The fact that you identify as a man doesn't give you, automatic leadership. And the conversations around survivors of sexual assault. And pop culture is it's one of my biggest headaches when it comes to ending violence against women. We have songs. I've forgotten the title of this song, but there's a song and it's, of course, the musician is a man who talks about how, I've bought you food and I've bought you drink and I'm saying, let's go home and you don't want to go. Like that is so, it is wrong.
Yeah, but that's a reflection of our society.
Of course.
That's what goes into the pop culture. So if you want to know how deteriorated a society is, listen to their songs.
Yeah.
Watch their movies.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's why pop culture is one of my biggest headaches. Like, if you are in your song talking about how, because you bought her dinner and a bottle of Coke, you are entitled to her body and she necessarily has to follow you home. And if she doesn't, you are prone to being violent towards her. You're basically teaching men that this is right. If you buy lunch or dinner for a woman, you have automatic access to her body. And if she refuses and you abuse her, they blame her for, refusing to uphold her end of the bargain.
Again, like I say this, and I know people like to argue this, right? But let's call a spade and not a Lamborghini. There's no narrative that's going to change until people see women as human beings.
Of course.
The reason why this is a problem, the reason why men feel like they have to exert that form of power over women is because they think that women are beneath them.
Yeah.
They think that women are less of human beings than them. We're in 2024 and people like to wrap stuff in swaddling clothes, make it seem palatable because maybe they have some women in there, this thing that they actually might like a little and they don't want to offend them. So they go, oh, we're not saying that. It's in the Bible. It's here. No matter what excuse that they bring up, it's simple. They do not value girls. There have been civilizations where once you birth a girl, they will kill the girl.
Yeah.
When China was doing their one-child policy, there's a reason why you found a lot of baby girls in dumpsters. Because girls weren't seen as human beings. Yeah. Any man who goes, I find that especially men with daughters, I do this, and I'm a troll, right? So when men with daughters start doing the women are not equal to men or men are not this thing.
Men are not equal and
men are the head, men are this. So I'll say this, I agree with you because my 7-year-old son, imaginary hypothetical son, right, is superior to your mother. Because whether you like it or not, you are building, you are creating, you are enabling a system that disenfranchises your mother.
Yeah.
So per what you're saying, my 7-year-old child, on the basis that he's a boy, has more value, has more importance, should have more power than the woman who birthed you. Because you find that a lot of men lack empathy.
True.
A lot of men have no empathy, especially empathy for women. Yeah. Right? I think they have more of the herd mentality thing. That is why men protect men a lot more than they protect women. Yeah. Because, before they gaslit everybody into believing in the patriarchy, men were necessarily supposed to be drones because they were the soldiers because of their extra muscle mass. So they don't know how to exist outside of the herd. Yeah. You get it? That is why when you find that even on the internet now for the youngins, we were older men. For the youngins, when they find a man that veers a little from the herd mentality, they find ways to they find derogatory terms for him. They'll call him a simp.
Yeah.
They'll say he's pandering to women
because
they don't understand why he's not part of, because a lot of men aren't capable of independent thoughts. Do you understand? So we live in a society where like these men cannot see anybody outside of them as human beings. And that's why when they find that even as a man, and this is how it affects them, and even as a man, if you have what they consider a flaw, they turn on you. If you are effeminate, they forget the fact that you have a penis because you're in proximity to something that they feel is less than them. Then they start oppressing you. Yeah. If you're a man who is more in tune with your emotion, maybe you're the one man, the exception to the rule, that has empathy, that has learned how to regulate your emotions. They see you as beneath them. You remember there was a time where when a man will come to the house and they will see your father sweeping and they will go like, Obana, you withdrew. Yeah. Why are you doing a woman's job? Yeah. They will call you Kotobonku. Yeah. You know, that kind of thing. They find ways to demean men who come away from that. Yeah. That's why they formed the bro code. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But that comes out of their bro code because then it's like it gives them like cognitive dissonance because they've convinced themselves that this thing I'm doing is what's natural. Yeah. This thing I'm doing it because I'm a man. Yeah. So then when they see another man not doing that, it's like, you're a man, why aren't you doing this? And then it messes with your brain, especially because there isn't a lot there. But you know, like there's a conflict. And because men don't know how to properly analyze or do introspection, or they are not as analytical as they would like themselves to believe, it's very difficult for them to like put two and two together to understand that maybe this is not natural. Maybe there's another way I can live. Yeah. So I feel like more men, and this is not this thing that we want, it's not the job for women. Women, we're tired. We've been doing a lot. Yeah. I feel like the onus lies on men themselves to sit down. I mean, those who can manage it, to sit down and think.
They all should be able to manage it.
Willful ignorance is also a thing. That's why I say those who can manage it. Yeah. Because, let's be very honest. Those who can manage it, to sit down and actually think about the people that they care about. Because men like to gaslight the whole world into believing that their entire existence, they work for their family. So that family you claim that you protect so much, that family you claim you love so much, right? What are you going to do to make sure that in your absence, the world is going to be a safe space for them? Because you cannot follow your daughter everywhere. Mm-hmm. You cannot lock your daughter in the tower. The men you will send to feed your daughter, like we've seen
they'll be the ones assaulting.
The story
Sleeping Beauty. Non-consensual kissing.
Non-consensual, like if it's even in the fairy tales we tell our children, you will lock your child in a tower and a man will gaslight her because of how naive she is to put her hair down, and he will climb on top of her hair. Those are stories.
You see, that's why I said pop culture is one of my biggest headaches.
Stories will climb on
problematic.
Hair.
So problematic.
Just to have access to her body, because how dare she exist without having a man in proximity to her in the tower by herself, minding her business?
This is my challenge. I mean, it's really important for men to think about that. And you're right. They only really concerned when it's their children, and it's their daughters, it's their mothers, it's their sisters. My challenge with that is that if men only care when a woman is in any way of proximity to them, that also becomes problematic, because then they don't care about abusing other women who aren't related to them.
But this is what happens.
No, I get your point that, it starts from one man and it's a community.
No, that's not even what I was about to say. So you see how I'm using the male logic.
I'm not disagreeing
narrative.
with you, by the way.
And if men only care about the women in proximity to them, right?
Yeah.
Because they have convinced themselves that the only value that they bring to any relationship they're in, romantic, familial, platonic, right, is the fact that they are protectors. They would want to protect them, and they would protect them from other men.
Yeah.
So do you understand?
Yeah,
and then other men, so they'll fight themselves and they'll leave the women alone. Then they were like, that's not what
I totally get you.
You get what?
No. But my challenge generally with men only caring when, it's a woman in proximity to them, like I mentioned, that's my challenge. A lot of men will fight tooth and nail to protect their daughters, to protect their sisters. Like, if you ask a man, if a man will never leave their male friends alone with their sisters in their homes, like, if he had to choose leaving his sister with his friend
or the bear
he would never leave. Like, he would say, no, my sister, no, they don't even want their male friends to come anywhere close to their sisters, So they can be protective. They can be logical. See, this is a thing. They can be logical when they choose to. And so a lot of the time that's why when we keep saying that, don't infantilize men. They can think.
No, I don't infantilize them.
No, not you.
Yeah, I get that.
That's not you at all. Generally, we infantilize men. We're like, oh, a man doesn't, oh yeah, maybe
boys
he didn't know when he was boys will be boys. Oh, he doesn't understand consent. Meanwhile, they know when their boundaries are being crossed. They know.
Yes.
So they understand consent. They know boundaries. They know bodily autonomy. If a gay man looks at a straight man like sideways, he gets agitated.
Exactly.
Like, why are you looking at me like that? And they start getting all homophobic.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the same man will size a woman up, look at a woman in a very, uncomfortable way. They will grope a woman and see nothing wrong with it. Right? So they know when they're being wrong. They know when they are crossing boundaries and they understand, they can think. And so for me, I would never make any excuse. And again, so the point I started from is that it's very problematic for men to only care when women are in a certain proximity to them. And we should start from there as well. Part of feminist approaches is, reorienting men into understanding that only caring about women who are in proximity to you is problematic.
That's very true.
And if you're doing that, then it means every other woman who isn't related to you is fair game.
No, but that is how society is now.
Yeah, exactly.
It is problematic. That's how society is. And that is why I made that point, because you have to see the women as human beings.
Of course.
The women in proximity to them, they see as their property. My woman, my child, my sister, my mother. So even they are caring for them is problematic because he's only caring for them because he thinks they belong to him. Right. And I'm saying that if it's going to be difficult for you to understand that, right? I'm not about to, I can only try to change a 45-year-old man's mind, but you have to do the work. You can't change somebody's mind if the person isn't willing to change his mind. Yeah, the unlearning and relearning has to be done by you.
True.
Do you understand? There are more vulnerable people that I have to think about. Yeah. But I'm saying that if you're going to protect your people, right? Protecting them is not buying a gun. Protecting them is fixing the society.
True.
Because if you're able to fix the society in which they live and make sure that the society is safe for them, by doing that, you're inadvertently making it safe for other people, other women, because you're understanding the way you treat, how you don't want other people to treat the women in proximity to you. Yeah. So you will also not treat the women in proximity to other men like that because, and I know this is a very problematic thing. I have one thing I've come to realize that men only respect women when they are in proximity to other men.
True.
Men only, and when I initially, to an extent,
they can disrespect a friend's wife or girlfriend Because who is she? She's just a woman.
No, it depends. If the friends, it depends on how much value. It depends on how much value that friend puts on his wife. If your husband's friends disrespect you, it means that your husband doesn't value
trash.
you.
Yeah. He's talking trash about you to them, definitely.
I'm sorry, it's a secret I learned from a man. Anyway. So, like I was saying, once you, it's very problematic, but once you're able to get it into your skull that I don't want people treating my family this way, so I'm not going to treat other people's family this way, then once more men start getting that, then you find that it becomes a safe space. Because when I start my feminism, initially I was more, let's change the mindset. Now let's look for practical ways.
Yeah.
Because when you're teaching, I don't want to sound ableist, but when you're teaching someone who's dyslexic, you can't teach someone who's dyslexic in the same way you teach someone who's neurotypical.
No.
Do you understand? So let's say men are the dyslexic men. We need to have the conversation with them in a way that they would understand. Because clearly they have to value us, to value our opinion, to be able to see things from our point of view. And we know that that's not happened. So in order to get the message so that at least we can walk down the street without fear of being raped, we can send our children to school without fear of them being assaulted by their classmate or their teacher. Teach these people teach them using the people they care about. Teach them using the language that they understand. Do you understand? If you find people who are intellectually elevated and are willing, because there's the willful ignorance, and are willing to understand, then you can have like a more nuanced conversations with them. But just for our safety and for the safety of our daughters and even our sons.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. We can have both approaches, right?
Yeah.
We can have the approach where we are using their sense of, protection for the women in proximity to them as one way, and we can also use, the reorienting them to understand women are full human beings.
Exactly.
Totally get you. It's always when the discussion is getting
interesting
that our time is up and we have to run. But yeah, this has been for me a very appropriate closing episode on everything we've discussed so far. And yeah, totally, I agree and believe that we've touched on intersectionality as one feminist approach. We've talked about a feminist socialization of children, especially the boys. I mean, we're going to teach the girls to assert, they're not dominance, to not see femininity as dormant, as being frail, as being, the second gender, second class citizen.
And being inferior to men.
Being inferior to men. We are teaching our girls to be more assertive. Yeah. And we are teaching our boys to respect girls' boundaries, respect their bodily autonomy, understand that their gender doesn't make them the automatic leaders or owners of girls. And we are trying to change pop culture. We are trying to shift narratives, to change perspectives around issues of women's violence. We are trying to change the kind of conversations we have when incidences of violence happen. We are moving away from victim shaming and victim blaming to an inclusive approach where we are recognizing that the only person responsible for rape, for instance, is the rapist and not the survivor. We are talking about avoiding problematic songs like Abua Konkontiba that promotes pedophilia, that promotes defilement. We are trying to avoid songs like the one I mentioned earlier. I don't remember the title of the song, where a musician is singing about how I bought you dinner, I bought you drink, you have to go home with me. Why are you refusing to go home with me? As if buying a woman dinner entitles you to her body. And that is absolutely wrong. We've talked about reorienting security services as a feminist approach because, we are trying to be more preventive than, than curative.
Yeah.
And at this point, there's a lot of cases that require curative measures, and it's almost always go to law enforcement. And we are saying a feminist approach means understanding that the woman's right has been abused, regardless of what she did to her husband, what she said to her husband, how she was dressed, where she found herself at that time, why she followed that man home. why she even spoke the way she did. We are moving away from that understanding that this is a person whose bodily autonomy has her right to her bodily autonomy, has been abused, has been trespassed on, and needs justice, requires justice, and justice must be served. We are moving to the point of traditional leaders and religious leaders not promoting very toxic, very problematic cultural and religious norms and practices that, emboldens and promotes violence against women. So when we talk about feminist approaches, we are talking about all of these, and we are talking about you as an individual understanding and respecting women's rights and not making the comments you make on social media, the victim blaming comments, the victim shaming comments. So Sewamihe's case is still on my mind, and I'll still use that as an example, example of how we all called her a shawu, we all called her a home breaker, we all were like basically drawing blood from her when she is a victim of revenge porn. Like her privacy was, a cyber crime. And we have a cyber security law that clearly states that this is a crime and has, legal implications for it. So a crime has been committed against her, and we are further abusing her for, because she had this with somebody who was supposedly married.
No, it's not because of that. It's because she's a woman.
Yeah,
because men have had these things with married women all the time. And
we know it's because she's a woman.
Exactly.
If a man has an affair, nobody cares. They say it's normal, right?
Yeah.
Men do that, right? It's normal. But because she's a woman, definitely. But the main point of argument was that, the man was married and you're a home wrecker, blah, blah, blah. Losing sight of the fact that somebody has committed a crime against her. And the target for our verbal assault
it wasn't just verbal.
Should be the perpetrator and not her as a victim. And so, we've talked a lot. We are way over time. We like our producers are giving us side eyes. And so we are going to wrap up here. Thank you so much for sticking with us on this season of As a Woman. It has been the Solidarity Against Sexual and Gender-Based Violence season. We spoke a lot about all forms of violence women from the different demographics experience and how we can all contribute to ending this violence. We are hoping that next year we don't come and have this conversation again. Even if we are talking about progress made and not persistent issues. Thank you for sticking with us. So keep interactive with us on our socials at Yebetumi on Instagram, at YebetumiGH on Twitter or X, and do check our work on our website, www.yebetumi.org. I have been here with Chichi Boham Yosen, and stick around for another interesting and impactful season on the As a Woman podcast and initiative of Yebetumi Initiative. It's bye for now.